I'm old school. This mic is my pro-tool.
What is Kudo? Did I screw up on my first episode and make a mistake? I'll be honest with you, I really thought I did. Paul Phoenix's martial art is listed as hybrid martial arts based on Judo. Do a search right now on Paul Phoenix and Judo, and tons of results will pop up. Do research on Paul Phoenix and Kudo. Well, let's face it, there isn't much out there about that, and we will fix that by the end of today's episode. I am the unknown Feng, and welcome to my channel. The story of Paul's martial art goes back hundreds of years to an island going through the winds of change. During this time, the samurai and feudal era was finally over, after 260 years of Tokugawa shogunate. Japan was finally open again to Western influence, technology, and most importantly, culture. The catalyst to this change was brought by the arrival of the legendary black ships. After Commodore Perry's second visit to the shogun in February of 1854, it would eventually cause the ruling class to cave in into the pressure of open trade. It is well known that during the Edo period, Japan went through over 200 centuries of self-imposed isolation from the rest of the world. Naturally, this meant very little contact with the outside world for the average Japanese person. The Meiji Restoration would eventually bring the end to militaristic rule and bring the restoration back to the emperor. One now had access to new types of clothes, music, medicine, and baseball. Inversely, it also spelled doom for more of the traditional art forms. Fukuzawa Yukuji, a man from a meager samurai family that would one day found the prestigious Keio University, felt that Japan must leave behind much of its habits shared by its Chinese and Korean cousins. Many commonly accepted beliefs not even half a century before were now seen as backwards. This modernization included economics, women's rights, but also the military. And by 1874, a nationwide ban of all samurai swords was underway. Jigoro Kano was born in 1860 in what is now known as modern-day Kobe. At that time, Kobe was a port city with a long history of trade. Education would be the sole focus of Kano's upbringing, but his frail body often made him the target of school bullies. Being at the lower end of 5 foot and 90 pounds soaking wet motivated Kano to seek out some form of exercise. A friend would introduce Kano to jiu-jitsu, but as Kano desired more training, it was difficult for him to find an instructor. Kano intuitively knew that the seifukushi, or bone setters, were also students of jiu-jitsu. Bone setting was and still is a form of alternative medicine practiced in East Asia. First introduced in the 15th century, it is best described as a combination of orthopedics, chiropractic adjustment, and acupuncture. Today in Japan, it is most colloquially known as Judo therapy. Jigoro Kano would eventually be introduced by another bone setter to Fukuda Hachinosuke, a talented and forward-thinking instructor of Tenjin Shinryu Jiu-Jitsu. Before age 21, Kano would find himself giving demonstrations for many people. One in particular was a former war hero and President of the United States, Ulysses S. Grant. While spectating an event at his university hosted by a group of students from the Yoshin-ryu, one of the more influential jiu-jitsu schools at the time, an ambitious Kano stood up and decided to leave the seats and engage in some freestyle wrestling event known as randori. While he wasn't defeated, he had a really tough time and felt his limitations during the randori. This motivated the young Kano to train harder and explore more and more types of jiu-jitsu, honing his skills. By 1881, Kano eventually discovered another style known as Kito-ryu. Kito-ryu places a greater emphasis on the nagewaza or throwing techniques, which Kano felt were much more superior. A young Kano would eventually open a training hall in the Ueno area of Taito City, Tokyo, with a small group of like-minded jiu-jitsu students. The goal was collaboration and training, but eventually clashes would happen between what was now known as Kano Jiu-Jitsu and his old rivals, the Yoshin-ryu. Students would travel to the schools to issue challenges. These were not the fights to the death famous in kung fu movies, but actually this was the practice of dojo yaburi, which would eventually gain the attention of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. As a way to mediate these clashes, from 1885 to 1888, a series of tournaments between the two schools would eventually become hosted by Michisune Mishima from the Tokyo Metro Police. Kano would continue to refine and improve his style. While learning at Kito-ryu, he had mastered the art of breaking balance so well that even his own master slowly started to lose more and more often to him. As a result of this, the Kodokan was able to finally dominate the Yoshin-ryu school many times over. The Kodokan grew, and Kano Jiu-Jitsu, also known now as Judo, continued to grow. Kano was a highly intelligent man, and the goal of Judo was for it to be more than just a series of physical techniques. It was meant to transform its students into stronger and better people. There were no nationalities or gender limitations, and all were welcome. More and more Judo students traveled globally, and its popularity continued to spread more and more. By 1964, Judo was a competitive sport in the Olympics. Judo's techniques can be found in a large amount of martial arts, but its two most popular offshoots are BJJ, or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Sambo. However, there is one more that is quite unknown. This style blends various martial arts with Judo to create a fighting hybrid style based around Judo. In 1949, 4 years after the Imperial Japanese surrendered to American forces, Takashi Azuma was born. Miyagi is in Japan's Tohoku region, well known for its tough winters, fresh seafood, and grilled pork. Azuma would first begin formally training in Judo around the age of 16 until 1969, when he was drafted into the Japanese military, now known as the JSDF. While serving, Azuma would take night classes at the prestigious Waseda College, and during that time he also trained in Kyokushin, and advanced very quickly due to his natural athleticism and resilience. Azuma was known for being technical and strong, and he went on to place high in numerous karate open tournaments. Although concerned about the overall safety and injuries, he would eventually found his own organization in 1981. At first, it was a blend of his Judo and Kyokushin karate background, and the discipline was aptly named Kabuto Karate, and sometimes alternatively named as Daido Juku. In the same spirit of Jigoro Kano, Azuma would eventually form his art around the emphasis of practicality, safety, and personal development. And by 2001, this hybrid style would be named Kudo. While the initial ingredients were Kyokushin and Judo, other techniques from boxing, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, and other arts would be added. The result would be the start of a truly Japanese mixed martial arts style. This is the true name of the martial art that Paul Phoenix practices. In the next video, we will look at some techniques and see how close Paul Phoenix is to the martial art that he represents. Thank you again for your time, and I hope that this video was interesting, enlightening, and most importantly, fun to watch. Please comment below if I screwed up any names, dates, or facts. Like, share the video, and let's make this channel grow. Finally, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do, because more videos are on the way. Feng Wei, Out.